Hi my lovelies. So this is the second episode of my spooky stories from Portland. So if you've watched the first one, that was number 1A East Street on Portland. And so many of you messaged me saying how great it was, so that was really kind because I have no editing skills. I have no script. I have nothing. I have the birds going, the dogs going, and the very noisy, if you can hear it, water fountain for the cats. Yes, bubbling away. So thanks for sticking with the first one, and I'm going to do the second one. I've also got indigestion. So it's a bit weird, this one. This one isn't so much about the spooky house. It's more about spooky experiences. So when I was around... So we moved from East Street, literally around, I don't know, 50 doors down the road to 70 Fortuneswell. And long story short, we actually moved out of number 70, moved somewhere else, and then we moved back later on. So there is another that we will be revisiting, number 70, as time goes on. So this is the first experience. So when I think I must have been 4 or 5, because I remember I was going to school. I was going to infant school, Brackenbury School up the road. Now, if I thought East Street was spooky, my house in Fortuneswell was really spooky. Now, if you know Portland, there is a high street. There's a one-way road system, so the road comes up and it goes down. Now, so there are many towns. There is Southwell, where I live now. There is Fortuneswell. There's Eastern, and there's Western. So Fortuneswell originated. There's old wells around the island, so when people came here they had to make sure there was fresh water. So fresh water is where they sunk the wells for people, and Fortuneswell was one of the first ones they found, which meant that the people who found the land or wanted to build on the land made their fortunes. So they called it Fortuneswell because it was one of the first freshwater areas they found. Now, this well is obviously gone now, many years ago, but it's meant to run on the joining of the road. So as the road goes down to High Street, the well is meant to be under there. There is a point to this. So water, as I said before, can attract spirits and things like that, because it's a very similar energy. Now, I don't know why, but Fortuneswell and parts of Chisel, they are quite spooky. It's quite a spooky town. It's quite a spooky street. So when we first moved in, the actual downstairs was actually a cafe. So my mum and dad took over the running of the cafe, or my mum did anyway. Dad was still working in the prison service. And so we lived upstairs. So it was a 2-bedroom flat, I think. The reason I'm having difficulty is because then they remodeled the house, so it became a whole house. So the front room that was in that memory, what turned into my bedroom as time went on. Anyway, so I don't know how they fitted us all in, because there was 4 children and my parents. Although my oldest brother was probably, he was sort of in and out of YTS schemes and the army and stuff, so I wonder if he was in and out. It's quite sketchy. My memory is quite sketchy. I'm not sure of where everybody was, but I am aware of the house, and it was a very strange house, a very frightening house, and it was one of the first places where I've actually been physically affected by a ghost or a spirit, where I physically felt harm, where I physically felt danger from an unknown source. Okay, it wasn't just childhood fear. It was actual punching in the shoulder or in the back and things like that. It was very odd house. I wish I could do more research, and all I can tell you is what we learnt by living there. So in the first time we lived there, downstairs was a cafe, upstairs was 2 bedrooms and a front room and a bathroom and a kitchen. So weirdly, the kitchen. The kitchen that is now the bathroom. So my memories of it being a kitchen when I was very young are very different, because my memories as I get older was the bathroom, and the bathroom was scary. So the bathroom was actually a smaller place just next door. Anywho, I digress. So I was only 4 or 5 in this house, and it was a difficult time. It was a difficult house, and I remember it being very, very, very haunted. So I don't know if any of you know Portland, some of the houses have the most steep stairways, and the stairs are quite small. So we would come in through the front door, and there'd be a staircase straight up, normal staircase straight up to the flat. And then just at the top of the stairs, right to the right hand side, you just went up these really steep stairs into the 2 main bedrooms. So they were obviously, I feel, loft rooms, because they had sloped ceilings, but obviously the house has been remodeled. So the house was actually built, there's 3 houses in a row now, and the actual house was a big manor house, and the house on the end is a bit smaller, and it's got a bit more of a roof slanting down, and I think that used to be the kitchen of the main house. So that house, which is now a house, used to be the kitchen of the main house. And then obviously you had the main house and different floors, and obviously servant quarters. Now, we believe that the top rooms were the servant quarters of the main house many years ago. Because if you go into the house next door, it's a little bit bigger, the rooms are a bit bigger, the ceilings a bit bigger, and things like that. So it just feels a bit different, if you see what I mean. So when they split it into 3 houses many moons ago, they sort of obviously adapted it for 3 homes, but it's weird. As a child with psychic abilities, you walk into a house and you can see all the layers and all the years it's been there, okay? If you can hear Daisy in the background, she's rolling around because that's her favourite thing to do, and she has her funny 5 minutes every now and again. So yeah. Oh, she loves it. I don't know why she does that. Tell me if you've got a collie or a Labrador, because she's a mixture of both. So yes, anyway, so some of my first memories up this steep staircase, and I still have dreams about it now. At the top of the staircase was a cupboard. So there's like a tiny, almost probably a metre by a metre space, so a landing, I suppose is what it's called, and then these 2 rooms went off to either side, and above the landing was the loft hatch. So honestly, I'm surprised my dad didn't die going into that loft hatch, because he literally, if he fell through, he would have just gone down 2 flights of stairs. It was quite scary. On the right hand side, you had the main bedroom. That was my parents' bedroom at the time. It's weird because we always change rooms. Now, it's really hard for me to get my memories in order, because we change rooms a lot, because I was a little shit, and I was always like, Mum, there's a ghost in my room. So they would then go, right, we'll sleep in there then, and switch around. And also my dad, he used to think, shit, this place is haunted, let's put the boys in this room, my brothers, because they didn't seem to get too affected. They did it quite a bit, but so we were constantly changing rooms because of spooky experiences. Anyway, so that room was my parents' room at some stage, but then it became our room. So me and Stephen, we shared, because we're only little, okay, and it was quite a big room, so we did have a little bit of space each. And one night we were lying in bed, and I was just falling asleep, and I slept with my head against the wall near the window, and at the end was a cupboard where they kept the big immersion heater. And it was a clanky old thing. It was like all night, and I'd be like, oh, shut up. Anyway, after a while, I heard Stephen. I could hear the TV hissing going. And I thought, no, not tonight. But I wasn't sure if it was the water heater either. And I just remember Stephen, who was only little, and he went, Christine. And I went, what? And he went, I was under my blankets, because obviously I hide under my blankets a lot. He said, there's a little boy in our room. And I was like, oh no, because I could feel the hissing, the TV hissing. So I did this, and I looked over, so there was like a desk and a chair, and I know there was like a dressing gown, and I said it's probably just a dressing gown, but it wasn't. I said to Stephen, I could feel the fear inside of me, and I said to Stephen, oh, it's all right, it's just the dressing gown, just go under your blankets a little bit and you'll be all right. Bearing in mind I was only like 5 or 6 myself. Anyway, and I just saw this little boy, and he was just staring at us, and I was just like, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. But I didn't want to scream because I didn't want to frighten Stephen, and I certainly didn't want to get in trouble. So I did the old trick of going under my blanket, going, go away, go away, go away, go away. But that was when I suddenly felt this small hand grab the duvet. Well, it was actually itchy blankets at the time, so I remember grabbing this itchy blanket, and I said, Stephen, is that you? And he went, no. And I was like, okay. And I just screamed, closed my eyes, and I ran to the light switch, which was by the door. I put the light switch on, and Stephen was all crying. He was really upset. And then my parents came in, I got told off and all this, but not too bad. It wasn't like really bad, but just like, oh goodness sakes, what's wrong with you two and your imagination? That freaked us out. But all night I couldn't sleep because I could smell smoke. Now, my parents smoked, okay? It was the 80s, my parents smoked, and they smoked in the house, so it did smell of smoke a lot. But it wasn't smoke as in cigarette smoke. It was a definite smell of like burning rubber, really thick smoke, if you know what I mean. So cigarette smoke has a certain smell. Anyway, I couldn't sleep and I was coughing and horrible. And this went on for a few nights. Not so much a little boy, but the smell of smoke. And then Stephen started to refuse to sleep. So he was only little. So he went into Mum and Dad's room and left me on my own. Bastard. So I was on my own. And, you know, my dad was like, you know, don't be scared. It's not, then they can't harm you. And I was like, you want a bet? Anyway, and then that night, all I could hear was... I could smell smoke, and all I could hear, there was someone lying on the floor, a big person, a big man or a big person, and all I could hear, sorry if I don't, you know, trigger warning, I'm going to do breathing, okay, was a like that, and it scared the bejesus out of me, and I heard it, and I laid there, tried to ignore it, my heart was pounding, my heart was racing. So again, it was right next to my bed. I was petrified if I put my feet, I'm getting scared now, if I put my feet on the floor, my little feet, I was going to stand on a man, or a man was going to grab my legs or something like that. Anyway, it scared the hell out of me. I was laid there for ages, and I remember lying there, and I just heard it, and then it went away, and I thought, okay, it's gone away. And then I heard it again, like this, and I was like, oh, every time it went, it came back. And then I don't know, can anyone explain to me why ghosts go away when the light comes? Because it must have been summer, because the light started coming through the curtains, so the window is here, so I just pulled the curtains and had a bit of light, and then I went downstairs, made myself a cup of tea, weirdly. I went downstairs, my mum got up and she went, what are you doing? And I said, oh, what I'd heard and things, and she went, oh, okay. So that instigated the first room change. So Mum and Dad moved into that room, and me and Stephen moved into the back room, okay, which was a relief for me initially. Yeah, so they moved into anyway. A few weeks, months, I'd probably forgotten about it. I remember it was Easter time, because it was Easter, because Dad went up the garage to get us some Cadbury's cream eggs. Anyway, yeah, we didn't do the whole Easter thing. And he came back and he said, oh, can I have a word? And I went, yeah. Anyway, I heard the breathing last night, and I went, what? He said, I heard the breathing man last night, and I was like, what? And he was like, it was like under my bed, and I was like, yeah. Anyway, Dad did some research, actually. He was like, right, I'm not having this anymore. He belonged to a club over the road. There was not a working men's club. It was, I think it's a Legion club, but there was a club there that met up, and they had history about the island. And weirdly, my dad found out that actually the reason they turned the main house into 3 homes was because there was a big fire in the kitchen. And the fire spread up, and the servant quarters, that bedroom, a lot of the servants were hurt yeah. So I do believe a chimney sweep passed away, and I do believe a man passed away, one of the male servants, trying to get the female servants out. Okay, so that was really interesting, because then it didn't frighten me so much, because I knew that this man wasn't he wasn't being horrible. He wasn't making that horrible noise on purpose. It was because he couldn't breathe because of the smoke. So after that, I was like, oh, that's okay then. It just changed it from being very, very frightening to something very, and that was the very first time I realized, when you feel that first buzz, that first energy of a ghost or a spirit, you're getting their darkest moment, and it can be the most terrifying thing. And it was terrifying, but then once I understood, so as now if I heard that, or I would still be frightened, don't get me wrong, but I would then wait a little while, dig a bit deeper, allow the proper spirit to come through, the energy to come through, and I'd probably pick up a heroic man, or a man that came through, you know. So it was different. But yes, so that was one of the rooms in that house, one of the rooms. And I need quite a few more videos on this spooky house, because the room where me and Stephen moved into, which was at the back of the house, or just opposite this other room, there was a darkness in there, and that's a darkness that still haunts me to this day, still makes me frightened. I still have dreams, I still have fear, and it's not like the scary noise that I felt, a scary ghost, and understanding it as it comes through properly. There was a darkness there which I haven't really looked into, because I've been quite fearful of it all my life. So I will digress into that room one day. But this front room was it was haunted quite a lot, and it was quite scary growing up in that room. And you would be playing by yourself, so My Little Ponies and things like that. Obsession, you'll hear a lot about My Little Ponies, and then you would just feel this fizzing going as the dog starts as well. That's freaking me out. I think there's a cat in the garden. So yes, and you would be playing by yourself, and then all of a sudden you feel the fizz, and you're like, the amount of times I've just closed my eyes and pelted out that door and ran down the stairs, downstairs, you know, just to get some normality, put the TV on, see mum, see dad, whatever. So yeah, that's one of the rooms in Fortuneswell. I have to go through that house bit by bit, I'm afraid. It was quite a spooky place. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I will go on and do the back room and a bit more about the house next time. Okay, I better go and see what the dogs are barking at. It's probably a ghost. Take care. Thank you. Bye.